Okay, let's do it. Okay, everybody. I'm Michelle Herman, and I am your moderator yet again today. And we had a fabulous session on this past Wednesday with Wanda Borges regarding cybersecurity and frauds that are happening. And Wanda's been working in this space for a long time. She's got a lot of great stories, and she's worked very closely with Michael Bryne, who's on the call today, and also Chris Finch. Both Michael and Chris have some really interesting stories. And we thought it would be fantastic if we kind of shared some real life stories kind of behind the scenes. So we're happy to have you guys all on board today. Okay, so this is where we go. This is our fireside chat. We have our fire burning down here in the left-hand corner. Hopefully that's nice and warm. So what I thought we would do to kind of kick this off is, for those of you who saw the session on Wednesday with Wanda went through a whole bunch of slides, really an updated picture of what's happening in the world of credit collections, what kind of frauds are occurring. And she immediately thought of bringing in Chris Bryne, who I believe actually collaborated. You guys collaborated together several years ago to create this first presentation. So I'm hoping that Chris and Michael and Wanda, if you want to just start and say a couple words about kind of your thoughts and inviting our special guest Chris and Michael in today. And then Chris and Mike, if you want to give a couple words too, that would be fantastic.
Tremendous. I have known both Chris and Michael for many, many years. We all met through the NACM originally, and I think we've become good colleagues and friends ever since. I'll talk first about Chris. Chris does a lot of education himself, and he created a fraud program not too long ago for CRF, I believe it was, but Chris will correct me if I misspoke. And he sent it to me to take a look at, and it was excellent. And while I was preparing this cybersecurity program and updating it, I actually said, let me see what Chris has. And one of the slides I used in mine came from Chris. So he is very knowledgeable on this topic. And when we thought about the fireside chat, Chris was my first thought of, let's get Chris in here because I think he has a lot to share. Michael and I became friendly when Michael attended the NACM graduate program up at Dartmouth, and we've been good colleagues and friends ever since. In 2017, Michael asked me if I would share a program with him and another CCE, Laura DiPrato, and we created a program called Fraud is Everywhere. And the subtitle was Business-Related Fraud and Security Awareness. So that was the first time that we actually did a program, and that was done actually for the NACM up in Boston. And since then, I've taken that program and amended it and altered it and changed it and changed it and changed it and updated it again and again and again. So that was the beginning of this program, and that's how we've all remained good friends and colleagues. So I turn it to either of you who wants to say something.
Michael, why don't you pipe in there?
Okay. So I my first experience with this was because I have to apologize that my business association is not up to date. I'm no longer with Hollingsworth and Bose, but with Hollingsworth and Bose, I did experience a lot of incidences of potential business fraud, and that was the impetus of doing the presentation. Wanda, wasn't that up in Vermont? It was.
Yes, it was.
It was a great venue, and it was a great presentation. People wanted to stay and continue to ask questions about what was going on, but we were the last class, so we couldn't stay too much longer. But that was the impetus, and I can provide some examples at sometime in the future. I've been a credit manager for in excess of 25 years, and so I have many examples. I have one primary one. I don't know if this is a good time to share that, Wanda?
That's Michelle is running the show. I let her
You
tell
just
you
go,
what to do.
why don't you go for it? You're on a roll.
I'm so used to Wanda being my moderator. Michelle, is that okay with you?
Absolutely, go for it.
So one of the big examples I had, which I had never experienced before, was we were working with a customer in Saudi Arabia, and we got a call one day from the customer saying, a clerk saying, we were instructed to change your account number to XYZ. And Lee, who was my cash receipts clerk, she said, I don't understand why they're asking this. And we investigated it, and someone interrupted our email communication to the customer, which provided our bank account information, and put their information in and continued the on. If it hadn't been for this young lady who was just detail oriented and realized, well, things aren't adding up here. The location of the bank account was in and I think it was a North African country, and so things weren't adding up for her, and she raised the red flag and came back to us. But the hack had actually happened at the company, because her company, because they had received our communication originally just as we had prepared it. It was within their organization or somewhere, that they had a hack, and they changed the information. Fortunately, the customer did not remit to that organization. Of course, being somewhat suspicious as a credit manager, I was like, well, is this a new delay tactic? Is this?
Yeah.
But it was true, and so for months we verified information with them every time they issued a payment. I thought it was a little bit overkill, but I understand they were being extremely cautious. They had identified that we had to have the whole IT team evaluate our whole system to see if there was a hack there, and that cost many man hours or person hours, and we couldn't find anything. And then it took a lot of time for us working with this customer to make sure that we got their payment properly, and that it was coming to us at the appropriate bank accounts. So it can be as innocuous as some other company got hacked. You didn't, but some other company did, and your information was played with or doctored or whatever to that they were hoping that our payment would go to them instead of to the customer. That's one of my favorite experiences.
And Michael, you said red flags. And when you said red flags, made me think about, Chris, your slide deck had a couple of slides just on red flags that you have created for your own team to think in terms of what to look for. So Chris, how did you come to thinking about making a red flags slide, and how did you come to preparing that slide deck yourself?
Okay, well, just to give everybody a real brief background on myself, I've been in credit for about 38 years now, and I think I've known Wanda most of those 38 years.
I think so.
I've been to about 33 NACM credit conferences, so it's been at least that long, if not longer. Anyway, I've been in 3 different industries: ag chem, computer distribution, and more the last 20 years in fiber optic cable. We manufacture fiber optic cable and other things. So I've been around a while. We were talking, it was interesting, we were talking just before everybody else got on about the one of the first possible frauds that I remember attempts goes back to the old Nigerian, one of your rich uncles died and left you a lot of money, and I'm trying to get it to you. And I was just trying to think back how far back that goes. That probably goes 15 or 20 years back. So we've had fraud for a long time. Couple reasons I got interested in this a few years ago. Number one, we actually got hit. One of the more common fraud attempts back about 5 to 10 years ago was what I'll call the university fraud. And this is where, and this brings me to the big point of we all try to be very efficient in our operations, and we've got everything online so everybody can know who we are and know what our companies do. Well, it's equally easy for the crooks, I'll call them, to get that information. And because we have so much information out there, they're able to pick that information up very accurately. And where we got burned several years ago was a university who has actually their purchase orders online. So you can just fill out your purchase order and send to them. Well, the crooks were using it to send it to get fictitious product from people. And we got an order, it was around Christmas time. So a lot of staff was off on vacation. And it was a rush order, of course, as most of them are. They don't want you to have too much time to do your due diligence. It was from a university. They sent references in, which everything looked good. The purchase order, I even went to the University of Florida online myself and saw that it had the purchasing manager's name. Everything was correct. Matter of fact, it was an exact duplicate of this university's purchase order. And so we processed the order. And once we sent the tracking information so they would know where to go, unbeknownst to us, they called Federal Express and said, "Oh, we need to change the drop ship location." And they changed it from a real university location to what turned out to be an apartment complex. Well, obviously our products wouldn't be going to an apartment complex in most ordinary circumstances. So that was immediate tip off. So some of the other red flags that we had, you need to look at email addresses that some of these requests come from. If it's a hotmail.com, and believe it or not, we got one recently that was from a hotmail.com. I'm not saying they're not legitimate, but I'm saying it's a red flag to look into. Yahoo.com. Those aren't your typical business type email addresses. So they're just, the more red flags that are there, the more research you need to do. So at any rate, it's they're coming up. The crooks are coming up with new ways to steal from us every day. As fast as we are and as good as we are, they're 2 steps ahead of us. We got one. Well, another reason I got started with this several years ago, I was sitting in an NACM conference in a session, and it was talking about fraud. And there was a company that actually I knew the credit manager. Somebody had gotten a hold of had breached their admin person's computer, and this individual had kept all their customer master list was on her computer. And they stole their entire customer master list and immediately sent out an email telling all their customers that they were changing their bank address. One of the easiest things with the bank address, they're going with a new bank. And believe it or not, and I confirmed this later with the guy because I thought he might be joking or exaggerating, but one of their customers just inadvertently made that change immediately and sent a payment for $6.5 million. That's with an M, $6.5 million to the wrong account. Well, unfortunately, that customer ended up losing that $6.5 million because the company never got paid. So they had to end up paying them. But at any rate, just the dollar magnitude that's out there. Going back to the university scheme, it's wide enough. It's been used enough on enough universities that the FBI actually has a fraud task force set up. Our loss was less than $70,000. So even though I reported it, filed a police report, did all that I needed to do, my guess is they never even gave it a second thought, because here you've got an example of somebody who lost $6.5 million and they really weren't able to do much there. So I think the main thing they look at is, was somebody injured? Was there any physical harm done, and if not, it's money. People are going to lose money. People are going to get things stolen. So, and one more example that I'll tie in real quick, and then I'll quit talking a minute. We actually goes back to the $6.5 million loss, and we didn't lose anything, fortunately, but we had an experience 2 months ago where I got a call from a customer saying, "Chris, have you changed your bank address and bank account?" And I said, "No, what are you talking about?" And they said, "Well, we got an email from you, had your email address, looked like it, that said you were changing your bank address." Well, immediately I thought back to this $6.5 million and thought, here we go, hope we don't have to go through this, because I'd heard of others who had gotten burned by that, and their customers had sent money to the wrong accounts. Turns out, because we're trying to be an efficient company, we're trying to be transparent to our customers, we want to be easy to do business with. We've got on our website online, we've got a lot of our customers. We reference some of the big names. These crooks, whoever did this, went on our website, found some of the customer names, actually, I guess through Google or some other searches, found the CFOs of those companies and their email addresses, and sent out emails to some of our customers saying we changed their bank account. And fortunately, one of them called me and said, "Chris, this, we got this from you. We want to confirm it." And of course, it wasn't correct. So we didn't know how wide that was. We didn't know where the breach had happened, if somebody had actually gotten into our customer master somehow. So we actually sent out an email to all of our customers with open balances at the time, notifying them that there was no change, and if they ever got anything like that, to please pick up the phone and call me. So it turns out it was only a small handful of customers that they had done this to, but it's just a prime example of how easy it is to make that change, and that it's going on every day.
That's incredible. Like in that case with the $6 million, I mean, there's really absolutely no recourse. There's no getting that money back, right?
Correct.
And in that case, do you just what do you write it off as? Bad debt do you have a category for cyber hacking?
Well, the supplier didn't have to write it off. Their customer ended up having to come up with a payment plan to pay them that extra $6.5 million. So basically, they ended up paying $13 million for the product. I mean, the company couldn't write off $6.5 million. They're a big company, but they still couldn't do